Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Someone told me to stop clapping. Yeah, you get a second one when you tell me to stop, okay? Now, let's get into it. Joe Rogan is talking about the immigration crisis, but also there's something that's mixing in with the immigration crisis, and this was inevitable. This was completely inevitable. There's so many people coming into places like New York City, Chicago, all of these sanctuary cities, California. It's getting to a point where you're starting to see a rise in squatters. Now, usually the squatters are American, and that makes sense. But I think in the next coming months and weeks, we're going to see a lot of immigrants who are on the street, who don't like being in the shelters. You're going to see them start to actually squat. So they're talking about the immigration crisis, and then they're talking about squatters. And I was surprised how many stories that I found. But there's one in particular that absolutely makes me sick. It is a Venezuelan guy on TikTok explaining to immigrants how to squat and what the law is. Absolutely ridiculous. But we're going to start with Joe Rogan. I got about 10 clips after the Joe Rogan clip. We're going over, squatters. We're going to hear some squatter stories that are absolutely heartbreaking. Then we're going to hear Benny Johnson talking to somebody about the Biden administration creating votes through this immigrant class. That's what they're calling them now. Elon Musk has a video of what's going on with the immigrant crisis. He's absolutely like finger on the pulse on this one. And Ben Shapiro is actually showing us an example of how the Mexican government and the Biden administration are working hand in hand. And that should sound like a good thing. But when you hear what they're actually doing, it's a very, very bad thing. And it kind of makes sense because I don't know how they get away with facilitating this invasion. And then the last thing is illegals rushed the border recently, and I'm going to be showing you a video on that and what all that means. Don't forget about IamCoachColin.com. We got sold not for sale stuff. If you want a discount code, it is I am Coach Colin, all capital letters, all one word, one L in the name Colin. Let's get started. Joe Rogan first.
You're a little like more used to chaos, a little more used to like some nuttiness.
Bring some pop.
You know? You're out there waiting in line, and you there's fucking crackheads everywhere. We have security out there to protect them.
Yeah,
it's a sketchy fucking.
That's
street.
like a cellar now in the West Village. Like these people line up to go see a comedy show, and then there's just people accosting them for money and singing songs in their face, and then they come in like, "What the fuck just happened?"
Do you feel a noticeable change in the city with the immigrant thing?
Oh.
It depends what part of the city you're in, but definitely around like the Port Authority, Midtown, you'll definitely see more of that kind of activity.
And that's over how much time?
I'd say the last 6 months, 3 months, something like that.
So where do you think this goes in 6 years?
Nowhere good.
Is it Delhi?
Is it? I really don't know, but there is like there definitely is like a mood in that part of town, and it's everywhere, by the way. But that's where I see it the most. Where I'm like, whoa, look at like the bus station here, like just outside. It's just
There's never been more mango and candy being sold on the streets.
I'm a fan of both mango.
Shaved ice it's so much easier to get.
Yeah, but can you imagine being like 19 and living, in a terrible place, and you're just so poor, and you're like, wait, I get to go to a place where I get away with crimes with my boys? Let's go. And you're just like a group of lost
boys. They just
boys.
let you right out of jail when you beat up a cop on TV.
Yeah.
But we are such suckers. We're such suckers as a nation to let this happen. It's so dumb. It's the dumbest fucking thing. It's happening right in front of everybody's face. What do we do? What do we do? And none of our elected leaders are doing anything to stop it.
Yeah, but weren't they shipping them to like Martha's Vineyard and stuff?
Did
not do anything?
Well, that was Texas. That's our guy. Our guy's awesome.
Yeah.
He ships them. He's like, okay, you guys you don't want to deal with it? You want to let these people in? You want sanctuary cities? Good. We'll send them to the sanctuary cities. So just start busing people to New York.
Yeah.
Our guy is responsible for what's happening and a lot of what's happening in New York. That's how they got up there.
Yeah, thanks.
But now the government's flying them places. They're flying them to different cities. You can ask where you want to go. They give you money. They give you a cell phone. And the thing that's really freaking people out, especially people in poor cities in this country, is like, where's that fucking help for us?
Yeah.
You got these people housed in the Roosevelt. You give them three free meals a day. Plus you give them money.
And they can masturbate wherever they want. It's amazing.
That's true.
That real? Yeah. Anywhere they want?
And for a long time,
it's happening a lot.
For a long time, especially in New York, they would look at you guys down here and go like, what do you, and then they finally got to experience it. And it's probably, what we experience is probably just like 1/10 of what you guys have to do being right on the border. So,
well, we're not on the border, but
I'm saying like Texas. So
but if you're down south, if you're like way down there,
border town.
Yeah, if you're in, Juarez, like right outside of Juarez, if you're you're real close. I mean, it's coming over and it's affecting you.
Well, it's a little wild because I don't see many kids. There's not many families coming over.
Well, here's the thing, though. For real, it's very dangerous to bring your kids through a fucking migrant stream that's walking into Mexico.
So are they
And a lot
coming
of them
here
are-
to work and then send money back?
There's definitely that. There's, but also military-aged men from other countries, including Middle Eastern countries, including China. It's like that's real too. And it doesn't mean that you're not compassionate for the people that are doing exactly what I would do if I was living in Ecuador and I didn't have any money, there was no job opportunities, and I knew that I could get into America and I'd get a job, and if I busted my ass, I can make it, and they would accept me. Not only accept me, but help me and give me money. And you hear from your friends, bro, every time you go across the border, they give you $2,200. So there's guys on the radio, in Spanish-speaking radio in San Diego, telling guys how they went back and forth 4 times in a month.
Yeah. And then
So they got $8,000 in a month.
Jesus.
Yeah, so they're living nice just by crossing back and forth and just continuing to do it.
Well, did you read the story about the guy, I think it's from Venezuela?
I had to make a move.
He's telling people how to get over the border and then squat in houses, and like how you'll just get like, it's like they won't throw you out of their house. It's not like where we're from. You can just get in the house and then you can stay there.
In Queens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
the lady got arrested for
got
changing the
arrested.
locks on her own home. And
That
then
to me is crazy,
They're
the
also
squatting.
saying in New York, if you're in a house for 30 days, you legally
That's right.
become a tenant.
Yep.
That's
if
right.
you get mail sent to the place in your name, it's yours.
That is bananas.
that is
Dude,
crazy.
I love this story. I think it happened in like Seattle or Portland or something. This guy was at every march and rally, and he was like big Antifa and communism. And he met someone there, and the guy was like, "Hey, can I crash with you?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, sure." So he brought him and his girlfriend and stayed on the couch. And after 2 weeks, the guy wouldn't let the homeowner into his own house, and he had to call the police, which is like against their religion. And they're like, "We don't know what to tell you."
Holy shit.
Isn't that the best?
Oh my God, that's hilarious. That's amazing.
I was talking to friends of mine. There's like over 1,000 squatter situations in Atlanta, and they're like, "Well, it's only 1,000. The population is this big. It doesn't really matter." I'm like, dude, 10 people doing it is alarming.
Yeah, 1,000 is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
That means they know how to do it. They know the loophole. And
Yes.
you need to tighten that loophole up, you fuckheads.
People are so smart. They know how to jock the system.
100%, especially criminals and
Yeah.
fraudsters, which is the type of person who's got, I mean, you imagine they're filming them. This is my house.
Yeah.
They're filming
Yeah, yeah.
And like, I don't give a fuck, dude. This is where I live now. And they know that you have to pay them to get out. And that's what a lot of homeowners do. But the problem is, then another person's just going to jump in.
Well, and the eviction process is so long, and you have to hire a lawyer. You have to go to court. And then
It's
that
all on
takes
the
a while.
homeowner.
And good luck trying to sell the place, because if you're not there in the house, they'll just squat.
But they always hold up like a dirty piece of paper. I have a lease, and it's just like a happy face and a house behind it. Yeah.
This guy was explaining how he did it. In this YouTube video. He's saying that you get a fake lease, so you draft up a fake lease. You use that lease to get the power, and things turn in your name. You pay the bill. Like there's a bunch of different steps that you can do that just seems to indicate that you are the legal
Right.
resident, and then they have to take you to court, and it could be months and months
Years.
before you even get a trial.
Yep.
And where do they stay? The homeowners.
They're fucked.
In a migrant
They're
hotel?
fucked. It's so crazy that in the name of protecting tenants, which is important, you don't
Yep.
want a shitty landlord. You want to protect the tenants. But in the name of protecting tenants, you're basically allowing people to steal people's houses.
For sure.
And not just one. If Atlanta has 1,000, what is the number of people they're squatting currently, Jamie, in the United States? I don't know how you would know that. Well, try Google.
Well, they just did the
Googling that.
census.
Why don't you ask ChatGPT?
It's not only that they're squatting.
scary.
Let's see what that bitch says.
You see how they abuse the house too. Like they'll like smear shit on the walls. They'll do all kinds of things.
Lenny
Because-
Dykstra did
so
that.
I'm like, you really
in Wayne
own this?
Gretzky's mansion.
There's America business in. Oh, that's 2010.
Well,
And I
Yeah,
think
but
Lenny Dykstra did it, and it was his mansion.
Yeah, and they were like evicting him, and he's like, "All right, well, I'm going to take a shit on the floor."
Is that what he did?
yeah.
And then didn't Gretzky buy the house?
He bought it from Gretzky.
Oh,
it was
he bought it
Gretzky's
from
house.
Gretzky,
Yeah.
and then he shit all over it when they were taken away from him.
Fuck you.
not cool.
That's a different story, though. He wasn't a squatter.
Yeah.
He just went broke.
Yeah.
That's like when you go to a friend's house, you have a party, and like that last guy who has nowhere to go, he's like, "Hey, man, we can." It's like, this is a different level, Your Honor.
Bro, the guys you can't get out of your parties are the worst.
Yeah,
That's the main reason why people don't want to have parties.
I don't know. Not
The
for me.
one guy who won't leave.
yeah, gotta get up early, man. That's all right.
I can barely get people to leave my podcast studio.
Especially when they get a little drunk and they just don't get the hints.
Yeah,
And you're like, you are drunk, you must leave.
lights out.
What? What are you doing, man? Are you fucking tripping, bro?
Yeah, I was that
Like,
guy.
It's 5 in the morning.
Yeah. I would just
in the
curl up on
morning,
their welcome
Ian.
mat like a cat. Wake up the next day.
That's what happened with that guy. He had the Kansas City Chief party, and then the guys go outside. They're like, "Dude, can't we just hang a little bit longer? Maybe it'll warm up." He's like, "No, you got to go." And then they all like
Froze
get
to death.
popsicles outside.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah. Like,
Wow.
how many of them died?
Like it was like 4 of them, I think.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Like they found the bodies like right outside. You know, but it was
Imagine
really
being such a bad hang that you end up freezing to death.
Wasn't
at a
there
party?
like some controversy to that story? Like
they don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, the story seems fishy.
There's something with it might have been drugs. It might have just been like you know they died somewhere else and he put them out there. You know.
Well,
who
I think
knows?
there was some controversy with the guy who called it in. Like he didn't do it quick enough. I forget what it was.
They
But
were
then
high,
people
though.
started getting suspicious.
They were very high though. They were
On
very.
what?
You know, they were drunk and they were just doing powder. I bet something like that.
Maybe
you know?
oxys.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why they just fell asleep outside.
That's just
okay. What does
really-
ChatGPT say?
have a number.
As of my last update in January 2022, I don't have access to most recent statistics on the number of people squatting in houses in the U.S. Squatting is often a complex and underreported issue.
That's a government-
Obtaining an accurate data can be challenging due to its illegal and unauthorized nature. You may need to consult recent studies, reports, or data from relevant
we're doing with
organizations
you,
or
bitch.
government agencies. For the well, this is ChatGPT 4. ChatGPT 5, it would be like, I know how to get them out.
Here's your plan.
You fucking send a robot.
When I quickly, I don't know the full thing in Atlanta, but the first article I pulled up said it was,
1,200 homes.
Yeah.
they're
I was off.
institutional investors. I don't know like how many of them are people buying houses and never living in them, and there's just vacant houses everywhere. You know,
What?
like Airbnbs type things. There's a bunch of Airbnbs, you know, that kind of situations going on right now, or a bunch of.
So they like move into the Airbnb and they just stay?
It could be.
I know that there are definitely people doing that because this lady videotaped this woman who wouldn't leave her place. She's like, I'm not going nowhere.
And you have to
she's
keep
like,
the
"You
lights."
See this bitch? This bitch is in my fucking house and she's
Yeah, but
cooking
can't you
in my
just
fucking kitchen.
beat the shit out of them and then just know you'll be out the next day?
The
and then
problem is
they'll
it's already everyone's aware that this is an issue already by then. So now they've got their eye on you, and you can't really just say this person is in my kitchen. They attack me. You know, you'd have to fight to the death.
You have to keep the lights and the heat, all that on as the homeowner, because if you shut it off, that's like a big red
Yeah.
flag. That, like you're not allowed to do that.
What's
They
it-
might not even be allowed to be in the home.
I think a lot of this came in New York City from the TILT
Idiots.
program, and well, in the '70s with all the houses and buildings just being completely abandoned and turned to shit. And
Yeah.
a lot of people were squatting.
That's right.
Because they were like homeless, so they were like, all right, well, we have to figure this out so that we don't have all these people on the street.
You know
And
Tompkins
then they
Square?
just didn't change it. Yeah.
In the 80s, I remember they back, I guess that was like a Giuliani thing, actually, where they were like, we got these squatters in these buildings and we want them out. You know, like in order to repurpose the building, they had to get all these people that had already set up power and all kinds of stuff to the buildings. So the cops would go in, and then you would just see like a rush of like skinhead looking dudes come flying out through the park, and they would like
It was
tussle
like
with the
old punk
cops.
rockers.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And it was just like they were squatters. They were like, you know, street kids that were living in these buildings. So.
Interesting. I didn't know about that. And it's funny because today, all of those people, like same scenario, it's all going to be migrants. All of them. All going to be illegal aliens. For sure. There's so much going on towards this type of stuff. It's ridiculous. One thing I will say, Jamie's getting tired of pulling things up for Joe. He's like, look into this. I don't know how I would know that. He's like, well, try Google. Listen, I'm just saying, guys, if you need a new producer, I'm here. I'm here. Oh, man, I can't wait. I'm going to be in Austin soon, too. We'll see. We'll see. I'm going to hit up the club. Gonna test the water, see what's going on there. Isn't that exactly what Jamie did to Brian Redman? He actually went to the club. Maybe I'll do the same thing. I don't know. So let's just get right into it. Let's start with this guy. Honestly, I'm laughing here, but also this guy's terrible. I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if he has a huge following on TikTok, but he is teaching migrants the worst possible things to do. And we already know that a lot of them are getting instruction on how to get over via TikTok. So now they're not only getting instruction on how to get over, they're also getting this type of information from guys like this. And by the way, this guy seems deranged, absolutely deranged. I'm going to show you the video, and then I'm going to show you a video explaining the situation. Then I'm going to show you a little bit of a video breaking down what he says. Here, let's get into it.
A Venezuelan national dubbed the migrant influencer is at the center of controversy this morning. He has been using TikTok to coach migrants how to live in the U.S. by taking advantage of laws protecting squatters. Hannah Doba reports.
Una casa en United States.
In his most recent controversial TikTok video, Moreno is telling his followers to avoid living on the streets in the United States. They can, quote, invade empty homes and live there, saying under U.S. law, if a house is uninhabited, it can be seized, referring to squatting rights in our country. That video garnered almost 4 million views.
As we have more migrants moving into cities, more homelessness, we are going to see more of it, more squatting.
James Burling is a property rights attorney.
But they're talking about all the advantages that you can get from squatting. It's inevitable that it's going to increase.
In past videos, the illegal migrant bragged that he came to the United States to vacation and now lives off U.S. taxpayers because he had a child in this country. He also tells his followers that he waits for Americans' hard-earned pension checks to come in every month. In another video, he is urging fellow Venezuelans to pay the fines of a 15-year-old migrant who allegedly shot a tourist in Times Square, saying, quote, "Today it could be him, tomorrow it could be one of you." But this recent video on squatting is making headlines as Moreno tells his comrades that if they fix up an abandoned home that is deteriorated or in bad condition, they can get credits when the properties are sold. While Burling says that is not the case, the misinformation is now out there.
Well, I think publicity, like what we're seeing in TikTok and viral videos of that nature, are going to magnify the idea that squatting is an alternative to not having enough housing.
Man, absolutely just disgusting behavior. Absolute. And here's the thing. A lot of people want to close their eyes to this, but there is a lot of them that are doing this. This is just a guy that decided to make a TikTok and he's just bold enough. He's like, I got the kid, whatever, I'm here. You know, obviously he had a kid. There's probably a woman involved, I would think. So this is just the guy who's willing to make the videos. There's probably a bunch of people who are a little quieter who are like, I don't have to put this on social media. I'm just going to live the life that I get to live here. Absolutely crazy. But the fact, and here's the thing that really gets me with this guy in this situation is the fact that he can make a video like this, but Riley Gaines will say something about a woman being a woman and things of that nature, and she gets banned from TikTok. This guy's instructing people on how to break the law. And also, more than likely, 1,000 people take his advice. There's going to be violence because of it. He's pretty much putting out calls to violence at the end of the day. Because one of these squatters is going to be like, nope, not calling the police, not doing that. We're going to fight this out. Someone's going to do that. How is this guy not banned? It's crazy. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Again, Chinese TikTok. That's how Chinese TikTok works. Now, let's get to this. Just a quick, they pretty much translated it, but I just wanted you guys to see it because, you know, he could be saying anything. So let's just get a quick translation. My people, I've thought about it, invading a house in the United States because I learned there's a law that says if a house is uninhabited, you can expropriate it. He's saying that you can seize the house. It's incredible. It's incredible that this guy can do this. And you're from Venezuela. That's what really gets me. You're from Venezuela. You should be grateful that you were able to get over here. You should be insanely grateful. Instead, and again, there's probably thousands, tens of thousands. I mean, what has there been like 10 million that have come over? There's probably tens of thousands that have this exact same mindset. And they're just like, whatever, we'll just be here. And, you know, as long as I get to be in this hotel, it's fine. And I keep getting food, it's fine. And I can work for cash and get food. And I got a friend that's going back and forth, like Joe was saying, collecting money. There's probably all sorts of scams happening that these people are running. And everybody is too worried. I've talked about this so many times on this channel. In the name of inclusivity, they are willing to destroy society. In the name of being a good person and feeling like a good person and virtue signaling, you're willing to have society erode out at the foundations. It's wild. Absolutely wild. This is a little story here that this guy's talking about. Then we're going to go deeper into this story about a woman who got arrested for actually, you know, just being a regular person who didn't want someone living in her house. You know, that old thing, that old crime, apparently. Let's get into it.
because of the rules and laws that New York City has enacted to defend degenerates at the expense of people who are doing what they're supposed to do. A grown woman has a baseline understanding of how the world works to know that this is not their property, it belongs to somebody else, and you don't have a right to it. But this is New York City, where things are different. Laurel went to the house with her property deed showing it was her house. Somebody else answered, and she asked the two people in the house to get out of the house. Now, remember, in New York City, you need to show that you've been there for longer than 30 days. Since they had no documentation, the police escorted them out. One of them was arrested, and one of them was just politely asked to leave. She changed the lock so that these people could not simply invite themselves into a property that they knew was not theirs again. And in most parts of the country that are sane, if you were to do this, you would not be punished. But this is New York City. We don't value hardworking people here. We punish them. Whether it is placing warrants on business owners that paid their taxes, or fining them for laws that they can't cite, and then putting them through 4 hours of hell staying on the phone to figure it out, or auditing them for over 1.5 years for taxes that they didn't actually owe, or revoking business licenses and sending notices to people that paid their renewal fee 1 year ago. New York City is filled with many bureaucratic clusterfucks. But the thing that makes this one particularly egregious is that this is actually written into law. This is not somebody misinterpreting the law. They are interpreting the law as it is meant to be interpreted, which is even scarier. If somebody claims that they are a tenant, it is illegal to change the locks or remove them. To be clear, not is a tenant, claims they are a tenant. Very important. Right after the locks were changed, the man who said he was renting the house came with another man that the police had already escorted off minutes earlier. They went right back in the house. They pushed past the owner, and you have this on camera. Since she changed the locks on her own, she was the one that got in trouble for the police and arrested for unlawful eviction. Now, let's be clear here. You are not evicting somebody if they were never your tenant. The man claimed he was renting the house had no documentation of a lease. And again, if you listen to this clip on ABC News, you'll hear somebody else say, and I quote, "We're not renting." They ask, "Are you renting this?" "We're not renting." The man who claimed he was renting the house had no documentation of a lease. What he did, because he didn't have a documentation of a lease, is he showed a bill for work that he claimed he did to the house. And, again, so every time I've signed a lease in New York City, whether it was for a $700 shithole or a nice $2,200 apartment, we had to go to something called a notary. So I would have a lease, and to show that it was legitimately signed by both myself and the landlord, we went to a notary, whether, again, $700 a month or $2,200 a month. This is standard. Go to a notary, costs almost no money, you sign, and you know that it's legitimate. He didn't even have a lease that he made up. He had a bill. I could go to a library and for 5 cents in 10 minutes print out a fake bill for work that I did for somebody that is fraudulent, has, again, no notary, no signature, no nothing. And this was enough for him to be able to actually stay in the house. The guy who broke into this house claims that he'll leave if she pays the bill, which he essentially made up. He also told the news, this is the best part, he told the news that he did have a lease, but why should I have to show you? I showed the police. I don't have to show you. I got nothing to prove. And then he shows the little bill that he made up on his phone. And then the news people walk straight over to the police and go, "Hey, did that guy show you a lease?" And they said no. Just flat out no. So he doesn't have a lease. He lied to the news about showing a lease to the police. He didn't even have to show a lease to the police. Literally a document that he made up and pulled out of his ass was enough. The people staying in the house admitting on camera that they didn't rent it, again, with no evidence of a lease and saying they didn't rent it, was not enough for them to be kicked out. And they are living in the house while the owner of that house, whose name is on the deed, is sitting in jail.
Absolutely wild. We're going to go deeper into this story because it is a real story and it has happened recently, but I wanted to play that. I know it was just a guy sitting there talking, but he explains it way better than the news does because he's actually a real estate guy. Actually, let me go back to that channel really quick. His name is Luis Roseman. Check that out right there. He actually, this channel is great. If you're into real estate, if you want to know about law and all those things that he named when he was talking about hard work, those are all things that New York City actually put him through, which is just crazy. So let's get into that story a little deeper. Just the fact that this is allowed. How deep is this going to go? Like, can I just go to a big house right now? And that's the thing. You know what? That's the funny thing. It'll work in a New York City where immigrants are affecting people's lives and taking over hotels and parks and community centers. It'll work in those neighborhoods. But if I go to a place that has an 8-room mansion and I just rush the door and go in there and be like, "Oh, I'm in, and I do the exact same thing, they'll be like, "Get out," because the people are rich. I guarantee it. You never hear about this happening at mansions. Why should? I don't get it. It's just such an annoying law to hear that's happening. And I'm still steaming about that guy who actually is telling people to do it. And he's in the country and he doesn't have to leave. It's insane. It's insane. They should be finding that guy and be like, you have to go. You're going back to your country. And whoever's the mother of this kid, they get to keep the kid. But you're going back. You've called for action. You're calling for immigrants to invade houses. I almost want to interview the guy, but he probably doesn't even speak English. He's like, why do I even have to speak English? He's like, I have more than most Americans. I don't have to learn your language. Absolutely ridiculous. Okay, let's go deeper into this story here that he was talking about.
A squatting showdown caught on camera. It is a scene that highlights how some homeowners across the country are battling squatters who try to use the law to take control of a property. Trevor Alt is here with the story. Good morning, Trevor.
Good morning, Rebecca. So these headlines come as the NYPD says a homeowner was actually murdered by a pair of squatters that she walked in on. And officials want to avoid potentially dangerous confrontations. But the process of legally removing a squatter can be extremely frustrating and expensive and time consuming. And some homeowners, like the one we're about to see, are fed up.
You shouldn't be trying to steal my house. Yes, you are.
This morning, a squatter standoff caught on camera by our station WABC.
There's a man sleeping right there. Get out of my house.
Adele Andaloro says she inherited this New York City house, but a group of people moved in and changed the locks.
Who are these people? Yeah, but they're in my house, man.
The NYPD called in, arresting one man.
Why is it that I have to leave and he doesn't have to leave?
Because technically he can't be kicked out. We need to go to court.
But this man, forcing his way back inside, was allowed to stay.
That's not going on.
He told investigative reporter Dan Krauth he signed a lease in October, though he showed no proof.
So how does this all end then? When do you leave?
The way it ends is either she pays me my money that I put into the house, pay me the money, and I'll leave, or send me to court, and we deal with the judge in court.
In New York City, squatters have tenants' rights after 30 days, making this a landlord-tenant dispute. So when Adele had the locks changed again...
You're getting arrested right now?
I'm being arrested.
For what?
For being in my own home.
Police then took her away in handcuffs for unlawful eviction. When it comes to squatters, homeowners across the country have to navigate a slew of laws which vary by state. In Chicago, Danielle Cruz told our station WLS when she tried to sell her home in 2022, a woman moved in claiming to have a lease.
So we show up with the cops, and there's a young woman in there with all of her belongings. They said, unfortunately, they couldn't prove that she was trespassing. We have to go to court and follow the eviction process.
But one man is fighting back.
I understand you've been squatting at this residence.
ABC's Jacqueline Lee met with Flash Shelton, who calls himself the squatter hunter.
Is this a growing problem?
I think that it's a growing problem like anything else.
When a squatter took over his mother's house, Flash had her lease the home to him, and then he moved in with the squatter until they left. He's now using the same tactic at other homes.
I would have had a right as a leaseholder to go in, move in on him, put cameras on, and eventually lock him out, and that I could force him to civilly try to fight to get back into a property that he couldn't prove that he had a legal right to be in.
Experts advise always getting an attorney to navigate legal evictions, but warn it can be costly and take several months.
Squatters are looking for an opportunity, and if they think a property is not being maintained or visited, they may make attempts to enter that property that they have no rights to enter in.
And part of the reason this is even possible is because of loopholes in tenancy laws. For obvious reasons, you can't have a landlord be able to change the locks at any time if there's a person who is staying there. But of course, this process can be maddening, and that New York case at the beginning of the piece, that's still unresolved. She will have to go to court to get those people out of her house.
Yeah, unfortunate. Can cost her time and money.
It could be more.
Wow, so crazy, so crazy. Taken away in cuffs. I don't know, man. If I was a police officer, I don't think I could do that. I couldn't take her away in cuffs. We're taking her down to the station. I'd be like, nah. I'd be like, come over here with me. Listen, you gotta listen. They want me to take you in cuffs, but just where's your car? Just get in your car, go. And we'll try and figure this out. Something for you to be a police officer, and for you to actually do that, just to be like, the law is the law, and you know this guy just took over her house. He invaded her house and is like, this is mine. I don't know, man. I don't know. If I was that lady's son, oh my gosh. I don't know what I would do. Actually, I do. I just can't say it. That's all. I know exactly what I would do. I would show up. You'd have to show up. What are you just gonna? Your mom's on the street now? This is crazy, man. Crazy. But New York City, and this is the thing. As much as I just want to say New York City and how crazy it is because of everything that they're allowing and how horrible the mayor is and how horrible their values are, not the people, but the actual government, what they value, what they put at the forefront of what's important, $53 million for these immigrants and their debit cards and this and that. It's everywhere. It's everywhere to different degrees, you know, but I will say this. You don't hear a lot of that in Texas. You don't hear a lot of that in a place where you got constitutional carry. You don't hear a lot about people strong-arming their way into other people's houses because that would be an issue. Someone actually in the comments said that the thing that you should do, and I shouldn't say it, I don't know if I condone this, but you don't call the cops. You go into your house and there's someone in your house. Isn't there a little bit of self-defense there? Someone's just in your house. It's your house. You have all the legal documentation. They're just in there. I don't know. It's a weird situation. Here's another situation.
You have to leave. You have to leave, according to the police.
That's a confrontation between Patty Peoples and two women living in her house who are not identifying.
They're living their best life in my home illegally without any payment.
Peoples says she put this Hogan's Creek house on the market in February after her longtime tenant moved out.
We had an offer that we were ready to accept.
She says she became suspicious when she found dogs at the house and a car parked in the backyard.
I was going to enter the house and then it dawned on me that there could be individuals in there and that might be placing myself at some danger.
There were two women inside claiming they were renting the property. According to the incident report from JSO, one of them said they found the property on Zillow and reached out. She said the pair signed a rental lease and provided a copy of that and a deposit receipt to the officer. She told police she wasn't able to get in touch with the person who had rented them the house.
Okay, Yeah, I bet you couldn't get in touch with the person that rented the house. And even that right there, these laws are so crazy. It's, what's so crazy? I keep talking about it. I always refer to it as the attack within. Every single thing that you see in place embraces chaos to a ridiculous degree. There's a guy on TikTok that's calling for not the invasion of a border. You're going to see that in a few minutes as well. Not the invasion of a border, but the invasion of people's houses in a country that he's not from. You have people who are able to strong arm their way into someone's house and just stay there. And the person who actually worked hard and bought the house and is trying to have some kind of living by renting the house out, they go away in cuffs. If you see some girl if you see a guy go into a girl's change room, you have to just stand back and just say, well, can't assume, can't be that person. How deep does this stuff go? It's so crazy. Well, it was my hotel, but they said they needed it, so they kicked me out and my business is gone. It's fine. Oh, well, something happened and now my business is just boarded up. Yeah, there's a thing going around. I can't see it and I don't know if it exists, but now I've lost my business. I had it for 25 years. No, they're not giving me anything to replace it. Oh, okay. It's crazy the amount of chaos that's embraced. That's wanted. And the only thing I can see, and you're going to see more of this in the video, the only thing I can see this turning into is a play for power. I think something is going to happen in regards to all of what we're seeing in these videos, and it's going to possibly give whoever's in power now, not even going to name them, whoever's in power now, it's going to give them the ability to enact some kind of emergency so they can remain in power. That's what I see happening. Why else would you allow chaos to this degree? Here's another story.
This woman was trying to get inside her own home, but the previous owner refused to leave. We told you about Tracy Albert and her husband Miles' harrowing experience 2 weeks ago.
He just said he wasn't leaving. That was it. Wasn't going to leave the house, barricaded himself in the house.
Now, after a 14-month battle, the squatter and his family have finally moved out. A neighbor's surveillance camera captured them pulling out of the garage and driving away.
We came here as fast as we could the next day to get let in, get the locks changed, and saw that he had still left some stuff behind.
Furniture.
Our cameras were there as movers removed each piece of furniture one by one, ridding the house of anything belonging to the previous owner.
Are you nervous that he's going to come here?
Yeah.
To everyone's surprise, the 5-bedroom home is in great condition.
When you first walked in here, were you holding your breath thinking, oh my gosh, I hope that the fixtures are there, I hope the stove is there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The walls were here. We didn't know what he was going to do.
But the Alberts say the entire ordeal has soured them forever on what was once their dream house.
I hate this home now, and that's, I mean, it really does suck, but there's no way that you can, I mean, every time I drive up this street, it's just anxiety.
So do you think you'll move in?
At this point, I can't imagine moving in.
Wow. Lost your dream home. Just wanted to buy a home, live the American dream, just have a home, have a wife, you know? Nope. Sorry. We're going to take your house. Just absolutely wild. It's wild that this is allowed. Now, we're going to move from this situation, the whole squatting situation, and we're going to move into Benny Johnson talking to somebody about immigrants becoming a class of people, you know, basically buying votes. Let's get into it.
Do you agree? Elon Musk made huge news this week, posting a video about effectively the scheme to create a new political class for the Democrat Party through illegal immigration and to allow these criminal aliens to vote then in the 2024 election. That's part of the plan. You agree with that? That's baked in.
There's broadly construed. There are three immediate objectives Democrats have with respect to open borders. And those are, one, this already happens. They're counted in the census, which means more congressional seats for states with illegal aliens and electoral college votes. California would have half of the electoral college votes it has right now, but for illegal immigration. Think about that.
Wow.
The electoral map, where this automatic giant behemoth of electoral college votes is delivered to the left immediately, is because of illegal immigration. Two, there's no citizenship verification to vote in American elections. Very few people realize this. If you ask for it, you get a form and it says, are you a citizen, yes or no? If you check the yes box, that is it. Every state that has tried to validate that, and the federal government does zero validation, has been blocked successfully in court, now going on for more than 20 years. This is a true statement without exaggeration. There's not a single state in this country where illegal aliens cannot vote simply by checking a box. And as you can imagine, the potential for massive fraud there is increased exponentially with mass mail-in voting. So if even a small percentage of Biden's illegal aliens fill out mail-in ballots, fill out ballots that go into drop boxes, etc., that would be outcome determinative in races up and down the ballot. Now, all it would take to stop this would be for the House to attach to a must-pass bill legislation requiring citizenship verification to vote in 2024. And the third thing is that as soon as they have the power and ability to do so, they would pass a law making all illegal aliens into full voting citizens. Had it not been for the fact that Joe Manchin is indeed he's a hardcore liberal. He's voted against us on almost everything of importance. But he did one thing that was noteworthy, which is that he refused to eliminate the filibuster. If he had voted to end the filibuster, they would have, in the first month of Biden's presidency, passed a full Citizenship and Voting Rights Act for all illegal aliens in the country. And they had the votes to do it, but for the fact that Manchin didn't agree to waive the filibuster. Manchin, by the way, he supports amnesty. He would have voted for the bill. He just didn't vote to get rid of the filibuster. So those three things are the primary reasons why Democrats want an open border. There are many others. We don't have time to go into them all, but those are the three big ones.
Wow. Very, very interesting. And you know what? At the same time, not surprising. I mean, everybody kind of is moving towards that, when you see the border the way it is, and then you see this push for voter ID being branded as racist, it's racist, it's insensitive, and then everybody brings it up, from Candace Owens to Charlie Kirk to anyone with common sense goes, well, in order for, how is it racist towards black people or Hispanic people or anybody that's in anybody? You have a license, you have a driver's license, you have to be driving, you have to be going to bars, you have to be, there's so many different things, little things where you need ID. But for some reason, the voting part, there should be no ID. And it's exactly because of what this gentleman just said. If all of a sudden there's voter ID, now all of a sudden you can't do exactly what he just said and just check that box and just put your vote in. Now all of a sudden you have to walk up and you have to identify yourself. Then all of a sudden, and I know this sounds terrible, racist of me to say, then only Americans can vote. I know. It's bad. I know. I grew up in a white neighborhood, you know. They got me. They got me. Only Americans should vote. Oh, no, I know. It's bad. I know. Shh. Silence yourself. I get it. Anyways, Elon Musk has been on this quite a bit. If you go to Elon Musk's Twitter page, he is constantly talking about or reposting things like the squatter situation, like the border situation. He's really keeping his finger on the pulse. And recently he posted this video.
Open borders plan to entrench single-party rule, explained in under 2 minutes. 1. Flood the country with untold millions of illegals by land, sea, and air from all over the world, enough to eclipse the populations of 36 individual U.S. states so far. 2. Prioritize the needs of these millions of non-citizens over the needs of the American citizen, with free flights, buses, hotels, meals, and phones, ensuring their loyalty to the political party that imported them. 3. Keep them in the country at all costs, even when they commit violent crime like murder and rape. Attack the language used to describe the criminals, as opposed to the criminals themselves. Slander critics as racist. 4. Ensure their privileges are made irrevocable with city and state sanctuary laws that act as population magnets. Codify permanent status and ensure non-cooperation with ICE. 5. Count the non-citizens in the census that will determine congressional apportionment in the House of Representatives. As of now, that would equal 13 extra congressional districts, a tremendous amount of electoral power. 6. Wage a massive, heavily funded lawfare campaign to change state voting laws that legalize mass mail-in ballots, no signature verification, and no proof of citizenship requirements, making it nearly impossible to prove voter fraud. 7. Lock in the permanent voting majority with campaign promises of lavish benefits and permanent privileges, enshrining generational fealty to the Democrat Party. 8. Win elections. 9. Entrenched single-party rule has been achieved. The best part? Your tax dollars are paying for it.
That's the gentleman who made this video right there, Western Lensman. You can check him out on X. He's one of the people who posts solely on X. But it's all very true. This is exactly what's happening. And it's very easy to see. That's the thing with all of this. It's extremely easy to see that this is what's happening, especially if you just engage in watching content. I don't want to say constantly, but but every day. If every day you're just alert to what's going on and you just see what's happening every single day and you just think, what would law and order do to all this? Law and order would be the thing that would come in that would regulate all this. Law and order around the border makes sure the border's secure and closed. Law and order in New York City makes it so you can't just, it just being a sanctuary city is the chaos that you see in New York City today, in Chicago, in California. Law and order, all of a sudden, the 30, 40,000 Chinese illegals that came over that wouldn't talk to anybody and were very hostile and for some reason have a different route than all the South Americans who come over, that wouldn't happen. Like, law and order just stops so much of this. But when you push law and order aside and you say it's some right-wing extremist type of thing, which is crazy, then what are you left with? You're left with chaos. They're just embracing chaos, and they're forcing everybody to embrace chaos as well. And again, the same chaos that I'm talking about is in the girls' locker room when they have to watch some guy change. It's in the school system when a teacher has a pride flag and they're like, you can pledge allegiance to this flag. Both situations are real. That's really happened. I'm not just making those up. It's just pure chaos. Pure chaos, and it's going to result in something. I'm not sure what, but here's a video of Ben Shapiro talking about how the Biden administration and the Mexican government are working hand in hand.
And So just how committed is the Biden administration to an open border? They're so committed to an open border that they're now trying to stop the state of Texas from actually enforcing the border as we know. The state of Texas tried to erect, for example, barbed wire fencing in the middle of a Texas state park to prevent illegal immigrants from simply rushing over the border and into the interior of the United States. The White House then ordered Border Patrol to go in and take down some of that fencing. The White House has also attempted to now sue the state of Texas to stop the state of Texas from passing a law that would criminalize illegal entry into the state of Texas, which would allow the state of Texas to arrest and then presumably attempt to deport illegal immigrants. The Biden administration said, no, only we have the prerogative when it comes to enforcing border law. And we have chosen not to enforce border law, which means you cannot enforce border law, which of course is an absurd contention. And the entire purpose of the federal government is to enforce things like the border. And if they won't do it, well, then states probably, under the law, do have the sovereign ability to actually enforce the border. That was the question before the Supreme Court. The Wall Street Journal reports that on Tuesday, the Supreme Court allowed the state of Texas to begin arresting and deporting non-citizens on its own, rejecting an emergency appeal from the Biden administration that argued that states can't interfere with federal authority over the border. The court declined to block Texas law, known as SB 4, that makes illegal border crossing a state crime and then allows state officials to conduct arrests and deportations. The Supreme Court was considering whether, in fact, the Supremacy Clause meant that the federal government had basically occupied that field of law and states could not intervene in any way, shape, or form. The Supreme Court decided, no, it turns out the state of Texas can criminalize illegal entry into the state of Texas by illegal immigrants and then attempt to deport. The Supreme Court order split the justices along ideological lines, but it's not a final decision, so it'll probably be remanded back to the appellate court, and then it will come back to the Supreme Court in another form. According to the Wall Street Journal, a state enforcing its own immigration law in conflict with federal policy could have an immediate and wide-ranging impact on the border. Migrants who claim asylum from persecution have long been eligible to remain in the United States, at least temporarily, because federal law implementing international treaties bars summary deportation before those cases are decided. So in other words, the federal government decides to grant somebody temporary asylum status while their case awaits, while it is pending. The state of Texas can say, well, I don't know about that. This seems pretty sketch. We're just going to arrest you and deport you anyway. The thing about this that's so odd, of course, is that for years and years and years, we've been told that it's totally fine for states not to cooperate with federal authorities in their non-enforcement of the borders. So if the federal authorities ask cities, for example, to give them information when an illegal immigrant is arrested, then cities can call themselves sanctuary cities and simply refuse to comply. So, in other words, the left-wing perspective on this is that if you are the city of New York and you wish to call yourself a sanctuary city, the federal government has not actually occupied the space and you can do what you want. But if you're the state of Texas and you wish to actually enforce the border, you can't do the reverse. The country of Mexico immediately came out and said, we won't even accept any sort of deportees from Texas. So if you try to ship them back into Mexico, we are not going to accept them. We'll only accept them from the federal government, which again goes to show you how hand in glove the Biden administration is working with the Mexican government. Remember, Donald Trump had in place, he had negotiated a Remain in Mexico policy with the Mexican government. That Remain in Mexico policy meant that if you tried to cross the American border and you were captured or you applied for asylum, you had to wait in Mexico to hear whether a court would allow you into the country or not. You could not be released simply into the United States, and then you never show up for your court date again. And Trump had negotiated that with Mexico. Day one, Joe Biden walked that one back. So the Mexican government, of course, prefers to work with Joe Biden rather than, say, the state of Texas. The government of Mexico put out a statement condemning the entry into force of anti-immigration law, SB 4 in Texas. They say, quote, on behalf of the government of Mexico, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemns the entry into force of Texas law SB 4, which seeks to stop the flow of migrants by criminalizing them and encouraging the separation of families, discrimination, and racial profiling that violate the human rights of the migrant community. I didn't realize there was such a thing as the migrant community. I mean, spoiler alert, there isn't. It turns out that migrants come from 100 plus countries all around the globe. They don't constitute their own community. The state of Texas, which is heavily Hispanic, is not simply going after Hispanic people. They're going after anyone who is there illegally. Meanwhile,
interesting. Mexico won't even take them back. Remain in Mexico was something, again, Ben clarified it perfectly. They'd have to remain in Mexico. It was something that Trump got done that was great. It was amazing. It was fantastic. And I sound like Trump there. It was great. It was amazing. It was fantastic. But day one, he just obliterated everything that Trump did for the border. And it's the way it is now. You see what I mean again? Trump put in law and order. Law and order. You're going to get in line, Mexico. You're not going to facilitate this type of thing. You're not going to have people just invade us. And in fact, we're going to share the difference. If they try and get into our country, we're going to pay the cost of capturing them and everything like that. We got our patrolmen, but we're going to have them stay there. We're sharing it. And then they're going to seek asylum. And if they pass, if they actually are granted, they get to come back. We're sharing the difference. They came into your country looking to get into our country. We're going to share the difference. That's all. Trump, every single step of the way, everything is just either even for America, or if he can, he'll get America in a better position. That's what he wants. If it's between a country and America's down here and some country's up there in some deal, he's like, we either going to be equal or we're going to be above. That's just how it's going to be. Again, I keep talking about this, embracing chaos. From day one, that's all Biden's been doing. Worst president in the history of the world. I don't know if there was a worse one, because the dictators don't count, right? Just legitimate presidents. He might be the worst. He might be the worst ever. It's absolutely terrible. The things that he's done and he's allowed. It's crazy. I actually can't believe it at times. At times where I'm looking at everything, like I was having a discussion yesterday about Trump and what he can do to fix all of this, because I was telling my friend about the law that Trump's going to enact, and it's a very vicious law, and it's going to look terrible in the eyes of the media because it is going to have National Guards in places like New York and Chicago and California, and these people are going to be rounding up the illegal immigrants. It's the only way for him to do this whole mass deportation thing he's talking about. He's going to enact a law where National Guard is going to be able to be in these cities, get all these people together, ship them wherever, and deport them all back. It's going to look terrible. The media is going to just feast on this. Trump is going to be seen as a dictator because of this. But once that initial stage of chaos calms down, it will bring order and prosperity to those places. You know, Mayor Adams has already said this is destroying New York City. He wanted to embrace it. He said it's destroying New York City. And if Trump does what he does or what he wants to do, New York's going to get to flourish again. You know, the developers aren't going to be there because they know they'll get $350 million fines if they decide to say that something's worth a certain amount and all of a sudden the judge comes after them. But at least they'll be able to have their citizens move around without being constantly harassed by immigrants, because that is starting to happen quite a bit. So it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. I can't wait for Trump to get in office. I'm very confident he's going to. But again, all of this chaos that they have in play, and I'm going to play this last clip for you guys. All this chaos that they have in play, you know, can't say for sure, because this chaos is working well. It's working really well. And here's a great example of that chaos. So many of these immigrants have gotten word via TikTok, via the people who already gotten over, that this is the place. You can invade houses. You can, if you don't get a hotel room where they feed you 3 times a day, you can just go into somebody's house. You can wait till they go to the grocery store and then go into their house and just say it's yours. That's it. That's all you have to do. And if they change the locks, they're going to go to jail. It's fantastic. It's so wild. So they got this information, and that's why they are acting like this. Crazy. And again, there is a certain percentage of people that will never call this an invasion. But look here.
Morning, tensions escalating on the Texas border. Dramatic new video shows a struggle between Border Patrol and migrants in El Paso. The video shows dozens of migrants pulling aside a razor wire fence, then pushing their way past a handful of Border Patrol agents. The migrants were eventually stopped a short time later by a steel fence, where border agents and Texas DPS contained the situation and processed the 400 to 600 migrants. Governor Greg Abbott posting on social media that after the incident, law enforcement quickly regained control and are redoubling the razor wire barriers, while urging Texas DPS to arrest those involved for criminal trespass and destruction of property. Earlier this week, video captured in Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, shows migrants placing blankets over a similar barbed wire fence to protect themselves as they pass through. This all comes as the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals heard arguments this week about the controversial Texas bill SB 4. The bill would allow local authorities in Texas to arrest migrants suspected of crossing illegally and empower state judges to order deportations back to Mexico. The Supreme Court allowed the bill to go into effect for hours on Tuesday, only for the law to be paused again upon appeal. The circuit court judges appearing skeptical.
This is the first time, it seems to me, that a state has claimed that they have the right to remove illegal aliens.
States outside of Texas are also feeling pressure to get involved at the border. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro says he won't send National Guard troops to the border, despite calls from his Republican-led legislature.
The last thing in the world I'm going to do is put the brave women and men of the Pennsylvania National Guard's lives at risk to be part of some political squabble at the border.
Officials tell NBC News that the type of incident that occurred in El Paso is rare at the border. CBP emphasizing that individuals who are here without a legal basis to remain in the U.S. are subject to deportation and would not be allowed to reapply for admission for at least 5 years. And as for that new law, it remains on hold. No word yet on when we might expect a ruling. Craig?
It's rare. Listen, it's rare until it's not. Just putting it out there. It's rare until it's not. What? At some point, this is not going to be rare. If it happens again tomorrow, it's a little less rare. If it keeps happening, it's a little less rare. I don't know. They're saying that it's rare right now, but this could just be the start. We've already seen December, 322,000 people came over. In total, it's anywhere from 12 to 15 million total illegal immigrants. Maybe this is going to start becoming the norm, and maybe you should be prepared for that. Instead of being like that guy, the last thing I'm going to do is put their lives at risk. What are you And listen. I'm not going to say this is their job and that's what they want. But they joined the National Guard for a reason. So I'm not saying, hey, just put their lives at risk. It's fine. But they kind of, like, people who are soldiers are a different breed. So when it comes to having their lives put at risk, they don't even look at it like that. If you looked at a soldier and you said, hey, you're signed up and you're in, but you're never going to risk your life for your country. You're never going to defend your country. I just want you sitting here. They'd be like, well, this is terrible. I could have just got an office job. When you actually put them in the position to defend the country, to defend the border, because they're needed, they do it gladly. There's fear with everybody, but those people have a different level of courage that a lot of us never have to even dig deep enough to find. So I think that guy's just silly. That Joshua, grown man, Joshua Shapiro. I think that man's a very silly man. I think he needs to put the National Guard there quickly, because even just their presence might stop something like that from happening. But again, this is not an invasion, and if you think it is, you are racist and xenophobic and put any phobia and ism upon you, okay? And you're not a good person. Okay? I know what you just saw, but that wasn't an invasion. That was just a bunch of military-aged men who just needed some bread. Probably just wanted a nice warm place to sleep. You understand, their blankets are all over the barbed wire, so now they have nowhere soft to sleep. They just want more blankets. I'm sure that's all it was. Anyway, guys, that is the end of the video clippage that I have for you guys. Like, subscribe, share, and let me know in the comments what you think about everything that's going on. What is this all going to be mounting to? What is this all going to result in? Not just for the American citizens, but also for the Biden administration and the government at large. Other than that, I'm out.